I'm Kylie Jean, and I am here with Joe Hanneman. Joe, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Joe, you've been in a very pivotal role, and you've been producing and creating something that's full of truth that's extremely needed to be told. Can you tell us a little bit more about the real story behind January 6th?
Yeah, throughout last winter, after the first year anniversary of January 6th, a lot of the reporting that we were doing wasn't really matching up with the narrative that was out there from legacy media. And so we had a feeling that the American people were not getting either the full story, or in some cases they were not getting the correct story. So we decided, because this is such a visual story, this was probably the most photographed, most videoed event in history. You know, thousands of cameras, just about everybody who was there was filming it. That we should have a lot of video evidence that we could go through and try to figure out just what did happen. Because according to the narrative, this was a pre-planned insurrection designed to take the election away from Joe Biden, when the people who showed up there that day thought just the opposite.
Yeah.
And what we found is that there was a whole lot more to it. There was a lot of provocation. There was a lot of violence that came from the police, you know, excessive force that was not reported on or downplayed. And we felt that really needed a serious examination, because you know, when you have what was a largely peaceful crowd and they started dropping munitions in the midst of this group, it went initially from shock to anger. You'd have 4 or 5 of these flashbangs or dispersion grenades go off in your vicinity, and you can hear it on the video. That people then got angry, said, "You're targeting us. This isn't just a coincidence or an oopsie. You know, you're out to harm us."
Yeah.
And I think there was a feeling of a lot of people on that west side. That started what became a cascade effect, and I think it rippled through other areas of the Capitol, where force was used, and in some cases too much force was used, and so you saw a backlash effect. Now, that's not to excuse everything that was done by people who support President Trump. We found ample video evidence of criminal activity, people assaulting police and doing things that should be prosecuted, quite frankly, but so much was instigated, and that part of it is, you're probably never going to hear that story told by the January 6th Commission, and it'll be rare if you hear it on legacy broadcast, because that doesn't fit the narrative. They tend to mock that whole idea that, oh, that's another one of your right-wing conspiracy theories. But you know, we went into this without politics. Wherever this story leads, if we find evidence that President Trump was sitting there lobbing grenades at the police, well, that's the story that has to be reported. But so we approached this from neutral ground, and the story we came up with just did not match what's out there. So we felt it was important to balance what's being put out by the committee with what we found to be the truth.
I think that's extremely necessary. I just have found, through conversations I've had with people, 3 different narrative, so to speak, that have gone on, which I'm sure you've encountered. I've seen people who have been boots on the ground, they were there and told the reality of their perspective. People who believe mainstream media and believe that everyday Americans are domestic terrorists. And then also people who have no idea anything about January 6th. Yeah. So for all 3 of those, what is the best way for them to be able to find answers and to find your film?
Well, you can find the film at j6realstory.com. They've got a landing page that gives the background on how we developed it, who we talked to. It's got some behind-the-scenes pictures in there. Gives a good sense of what the thinking is behind the film. And you know, it's anyone who subscribes to the Epoch Times can view this for free. And they're running, I mean, it's a good investment. You can actually sign up for free right now. They've got some things going on, or 2 months for $1 or something. And it's a good way to see the film and also expose people to the reporting that is behind it, which they will see on our website and in our print products, the newspaper and the magazine. And this is an ongoing thing. This is a day-to-day we're learning more things every single day that we'll be reporting, and the story's not going away anytime soon.
Well, and you as a producer and as a writer, is there anything that during this time of seeking out the truth and the reality of what happened that actually caught you off guard?
One of the big things we discovered in working with some of the defense attorneys that are investigating this as well is what the attorneys call suspicious actors and material witnesses. These are people who are on camera, some committing criminal acts, who have not been arrested, they have not been charged, and in a lot of cases, we don't even know their names. They have a hashtag that was assigned to them by the Sedition Hunters website. Some are on the FBI's most wanted list. Many, if not most, are not. So they're not being sought publicly that we know of. And we've identified probably upwards of 150 people. And these were at key flashpoints on the east side and on the west side of the Capitol. Some of them doing coordination, almost choreographed maneuvers, if you will, with other people, using hand signals and other types of communication that you would not expect from a rally goer. It gives off the air of something that is planned. And we don't have the answers yet. The attorneys are starting to identify some of these people, and we're also hoping to, in the hallway where Ashley Babbitt was shot, there were about 24 of these suspicious actors who 18 months later still have not been identified. They have not been called in to give statements, and we don't know who most of them are, which is remarkable considering the technology at the disposal of the federal government. If they've not been brought in, that's because a decision was made not to bring them in. And that's what we want to find out, because, and I know Ashley's family and her husband are intent on finding out how everyone in that hallway ended up there.
Absolutely. It feels like, and from what you're unpacking, almost a two-tiered justice system that is at play in some of these. That feels pick and choose. Is that what you discovered?
Well, it has all the appearance of that. If you look at what's going on in the federal courts in the District of Columbia, you have dozens of men who are held in pretrial detention. Some of them already over 18 months, and by the time their trials come, many of them have been in prison for more than 2 years. And pretrial detention is supposed to be reserved for the worst, most dangerous suspects. People who might flee, or they can prove that they would be people who would be likely to commit crimes if you let them out. So otherwise, we are presumed innocent. And the fact that we've got this larger group that is being denied their freedom, that should trouble everybody. It's really not a partisan issue when you think about it. Today it could be conservatives who support President Trump. Tomorrow it could be people on the left who support a different candidate for president. Constitutional rights are at risk. Yeah,
absolutely. And would you say, are you referring to, I've heard, is that there's prisons in the undergrounds of DC where these people are being held? Is that what you're referring to?
Well, yeah, they call it the Central Detention Facility. It's basically the municipal jail in the District of Columbia. It is probably a little strong to call it condemned, although the U.S. Marshals did a surprise inspection last fall, and they removed more than 400 people from the facility because it was infested with black mold, with bathroom facilities that didn't work or had leaky plumbing, and a lot of these, but the January 6th inmates were left in place, and they remain there. It's, these conditions by and large are inhumane, and it's the kind of thing that civil rights groups would be championing, but they're not.
Yeah.
You don't have the ACLU, you don't have Amnesty International, even though reports have been sent to them, firsthand testimony from inmates. This is what's being done, and there's not a peep out of these organizations. Which is it's very troubling, because it shouldn't matter what your politics. If you're being punished for your politics, we've got a big problem.
A huge problem, and these are normal, everyday Americans, moms, fathers, businessmen, and there's no accountability being held for those that are keeping them there. correct?
No, not as of yet. The defense lawyers keep coming up with new petitions. In order to petition again, they have to find new evidence. And so they've been busy at work trying to find new evidence to show a judge that these conditions that we propose would meet public safety. This is not an individual who has any history, and many of them do not. They have no history of violence. But so far, it's been a rarity to see people who are released after one of these appeals. There have been some that were medical related. There was a defendant who was being kept from his chemotherapy for his cancer, and this went on for like 10 months. And eventually they did allow him home detention, and he's now getting cancer treatment. But some of these fellows in this DC jail have been tortured. I mean, they've given firsthand testimony of brutal treatment. I mean, being picked up and dropped on their head by some of the large guards. So this and others who have been released have told their stories about this, and it raises a lot of questions. And there are a few voices in DC who are raising objections. It's a small group, surprisingly, that you think there would be more, at least on the right, who would stand up and say, hey, this is not right. We got to do better.
Absolutely. Make sure that you check out the real story behind January 6th. This is a very important issue. Like you said, it's an ongoing issue. And the truth is more important than ever. We need to share it. We need to talk about it. We need to be educated on it so that we can properly take action as citizens of the United States of America. Joe, thank you so much for everything you're doing and for being with us today on FreeSpace.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.